In this video tutorial, I'll be showing you how to use the Fantom Effect for Photoshop. So this is a free Photoshop action that will automatically convert your text or logos into the style that you see here. And every time you run the Photoshop action, you get a different looking result. So we'll leave a link to the Photoshop action down in the description. So feel free to download it and follow along in this video. So here I have a new document open in Photoshop. And if I go to the image menu and down to image size, you can see the dimensions I've set up here, 3000 by 1500. You don't need to use the same dimensions I've set up. This is just what I've done for the tutorial. So I'll click OK. Next, I need to type out some text. So if I hit T to activate the text tool, just click and I'll type out Fantom, or hit Control or Command Enter to confirm that. Next, what I need to do is align this text to the center of the document. So if I hit V for the Move tool, Control A or Command A to select all, then I'll just hit these align buttons here to align the text. Control or Command D to deselect. Next, what I need to do is scale this text up. So I'll hit Control or Command T, and holding down Alt or Option, I'll just drag this up to make it much bigger. And I'll hit Enter to confirm that. Next, you need to ensure that your text or graphic is on a transparent background. So if you look into the layer panel here, you can see I have this background layer here that we need to delete. So I'll select that, hit delete, and now my text is on a transparent background. You also need to ensure that you only have one layer before running the action. So if I just duplicate this layer a few times, let's just say I've created text across multiple layers, you need to merge all these together so that it's on just one layer. So for example, if I hold down Shift and select all these, then hit Control or Command E, that will merge them onto one layer. But I'll just undo that for the moment. Back to the one layer here. The next step is to load the action and brushes into Photoshop. So let's firstly load the brushes. So if you hit B on the keyboard or select the brush tool here, then right click anywhere over your document, that will bring up the brushes panel. Next, click on this icon here and down to import brushes. Now, where you downloaded the file, there'll be a folder called brushes must be loaded into Photoshop. Go inside there and double click on this .abr file. They are the brushes to make this effect work. So we'll just click away from this for the moment. Next, we need to load the action. So if we go to the window menu and select actions, the actions panel will appear. You can also click on this icon here. Next, click on this drop down menu and down to load actions. Navigate to where you download the file, and there will be a Fantom Effect by Sevenstyles.atn file. That is the action. Double click and it will appear inside this folder here. So when you open the folder, you'll see this action here play. This is the one we need to run to create the effect. All of these actions you see here are some preset color options, which you can run after you've played this action here. And all the actions down the bottom here are the workings of the effect. So you don't need to play any of those. Make sure you also don't rename this folder or rename this action here or any of these ones down the bottom here. Otherwise the action won't work at all. So with the play action selected, all you need to do is click the play button and you'll get a pop-up straight away just reminding you to check your layer panel just to ensure your text or graphic is only on one layer and it's also on a transparent background. So with that done, all you need to do is click continue and that's it. So from here, the action will take around 2 to 3 minutes, but if you have a lot more detail in your document than what I have here, it could take longer. So I will just fast forward this video and get to the result. Here we are. So I'll just collapse the actions panel for the moment. And I'll firstly point out that every time you run this action, you will get a different result. So this mist or smoke, whatever you want to call it, will be randomized. So if you want to run the action again, say on this same text that I've created here, in the layer panel here, just you want to collapse the Fantom Effect by Sevenstyles folder. So collapse that. And you want to shift select all the layers and folders here except for the bottom layer here. Delete those. And this bottom layer is your original graphics. So here's my text and I would just open up the actions panel. I'll select the play action here, then click play, and then that will recreate the effect all over again. But the next time the result will be different. So one of the first things you might want to do after run the action is experiment with different color looks. So if you open the actions panel here and under the Fantom Effect folder, I've set up 20 different preset color looks. And the way these work is that you just select one and then click the play button. And then that will apply a different look. So I'll select this one here, play, and let's try another one. Okay, And the way these actions work is that they are changing the color values here. Okay, so you can see we have the primary color, a mixed color, and a highlight color. So each one of those actions is adjusting those colors. So just make sure that if you're working in this Photoshop document, not to rename these layers here. It also adjusts the overall brightness and contrast layer here. So make sure you don't rename that one either. So if you want to experiment with your own color looks, what I like to do is firstly is turn off these top layers and start at the primary color. So I'll just hide this for the moment. So I might just pick a color here, and then I'll move up to the mixed color. Okay, and then I will just experiment with different colors here. Let's go for a red, and then the top one is the highlight color. So you can see those three colors working together there, and then you can just turn on the brightness and contrast and make some adjustments here. Okay, and at any time you can always just go back into the actions panel here and choose a new action. Let's try this one, run that, and then that will create a new look. Now before going into the Fantom Effect folder here, I'll just mention that if you want to export your graphic on a transparent background, all you need to do is hide this background color layer here. I've got in brackets here hide for overall transparency. So if you just turn off the visibility for that layer, everything is now on a transparent background. So then you can just save that out as a PNG and you've got that transparency. Let's now go into the Fantom Effect folder here. So if I turn this on and off, you can see that's where everything is happening. So I'll open this folder. And if you want to quickly collapse folders that are open, hold down Control Alt or Command Option and click on any folder arrow here. Click on that and that will quickly collapse everything for us. So we'll turn all these layers and folders off and we'll go from the bottom here. We'll go inside here as well, this mist folder, turn all these off and we'll just start from the top. So these are the individual, I've just called them mist layers. So if I turn them on one by one, you can see how they start building, and these bottom two here are the large mist layers. So if I just increase the opacity here, you can see those coming through a bit more. What I might actually do, I might just run the shadows action here, bring everything back to black and white, and let's now, so inside here we have a few different layers to experiment with, and I've got in brackets here opacity for all of them. And that is just to remind you to experiment with that layer to its opacity. So if you look at the opacity up the top here, as I click down the list, how some are different. So this one's only at 20% opacity. So if I just increase this, these wispy bits are coming through more in our design. So just by default, that one was lower. I think if you remember this one, it's at 70%, so that one's a bit higher. So you definitely want to jump inside this folder and experiment with adjusting the opacities. You can also hold down Alt or Option, drag up to duplicate layers to increase their opacity that way. But you definitely want to also experiment with these large background textures as well. You might want to turn them off altogether if you don't want them, or increase their opacity. You could also move them around. Okay, so if I just increase the opacity of this layer, you can move that around there. You can also rotate them, duplicate them, whatever you want to do there. Okay, so that is the mist folder. The next folder up here is mist overlays. So if I turn that one on and off, you can see the effect that that is having. If you go inside this folder, there are just 4 layers here. And these are just some textures that are overlaid on top of the mist layers below. Okay, so you can experiment with their opacity. I've got in brackets here opacity / blend mode, just to remind you that you can change the blend mode as well of these textures, and that could have a different effect on your outcomes. So you can see if I change this to color dodge, increase the opacity, maybe not that much, but just a little bit, you start to get these bright spots coming through. But just by default, this one was set to soft light. So just go down through those and take a look at their blend mode and opacity, just experiment. So the next layer up here is shadow, and I've got in brackets here opacity. So if I turn this one on, you can see what that is doing. Now this layer will make a bit more sense as we move up the layer order here, but this just provides a bit of a backdrop for our text to make the text stand out a bit more. So if I just increase the opacity here to 100%, you can see it gets much darker. But yeah, this will make a bit more sense as we move up. So we'll move up to the soft mist outlines here. So I'll turn this one on. So to show what this folder is doing, I might solo this folder by holding down Alt or Option and click on this eye here. And then I will turn on the background color layer. So now you can see the folder here, what that's doing. And if you go inside here, we have 3 different layers. Okay, and I've got in brackets here opacity. So their opacity is at 50%. So if I increase it to 100, you can see what they're doing. And you can always, when you see a layer with an FX symbol on it, that means you can edit that layer's style by double clicking on it. And you can see bevel and emboss is ticked here. So I've applied some settings to bevel and emboss. But you can go inside here and play around with the angle here. So I can alternate the angle. I can also increase the opacity here if I want that to come through a bit more. Okay, and that is the same setup for these other 3, except they're all just slightly different angles. So I'll go ahead and turn on all these color layers here and the overall brightness. And we'll move up here to the light fill and the dark fill. So if I turn this one on, you can see that brings a bit more form back into our graphic. And if I turn the dark fill on, that one darkens it a bit more. So you can still see the shape of the Fantom text. I'll just turn on these other 3 folders so we can see what's going on a bit more. So again, I'll turn the dark fill off so you can see that brightens up our area of text, and a dark fill will darken it. So turn those ones on and off to see how that affects your result and just which one you prefer. So the next folder up here is inner edge mist. So if I turn that one on and off, you can see what that's doing, and that just puts some distortion through our text there. So you can see it creates all these different shapes, and it kind of blends in with the mist or smoke around the text. So if I go inside this folder, there are just 2 layers. So hide them both and turn the top one on here. So there's 1 and there's 2, and they kind of just work together to create the overall look. And again, I've left the layer style editable with these layers, so I can just double click on this layer and go into the bevel and emboss settings here and change the angle. So if I do that, you can see it updating there in the design. You can also experiment with the opacity here, the highlight mode. So whatever you want to do with those, it's there to experiment with. So the next folder up is edge outlines. So I'll turn this one on and off. Okay, and inside this folder, there are 3 layers that you can experiment with. So if I turn them all off, turn them on one by one. So here's that one, this one, and that one. And you can double click on any one of these and edit their layer style. So I'll double click on this one into bevel and emboss, and you can adjust the angle. Okay. And again, the opacity of the highlight mode is one to play around with. Okay. So the next folder up here is wispy bits. So if I turn this one on, you can see that these are the bits of mist that kind of break off from your text. And if you go inside this folder here, I've set up 3 different layers for these. So here's the top one, here's the second one, and the third one. So obviously you don't need to use them all. Also check their opacity. So this top one's only at 60%. So if I turn it to 100%, it's a bit more prominent. You can also just duplicate this entire folder if you want them to stand out a lot more. So if I select this folder here and hit Control or Command J, everything gets boosted. All right. The next layer up here is mist on top. So if I turn this one on, you can see that this is the mist that kind of sits on top of your graphic and weaves in and out of it. So I've got in brackets here opacity and blend mode. So currently its opacity is at 50%. So as I increase this, you can see it starts to cover up a lot more of the text, but it creates this really cool effect. You can also play around with the blend mode. So if I change this from normal to screen, you'll see that it becomes transparent then. So we can still see the text, but it creates these bright areas throughout the design. Okay, so just keep in mind that it is set to normal and the default opacity is at 50%. So definitely have a play around with this layer. The last folder here is glow. So if I turn this one on, this will apply a subtle glow to the brightest areas throughout your design. So you can see, so I'll turn that on and off. Okay, and if you go inside this folder, there are 5 different layers. And if I just turn them all off, so glow number 1 is turned off by default, but if I turn this one on, you can see that boosts the brightness a little bit where the existing hot spots are. The next one up adds a little bit of glow, the next one a bit more, the next one a bit more, the next one a bit more. So what you can do, if you want to add more glows, so just keep in mind by default, the glow one, it's turned off. Okay, but if I want to boost this glow some more, I'll just duplicate this folder, hit Control or Command J, and you can see that the glows have been boosted. I can just keep hitting that over and over and over, and that will keep increasing the glow. But you can also just hide some of these layers here, and let's just say grab these two and hold down Alt or Option and just drag those up, and so that will make a copy. And then you could shift select all of these and then hold down Alt or Option again and drag those up, and that'll copy all of those. Okay, so that's a few different ways you can adjust the glows and boost their intensity. So to finish this design, I might just apply a color look here. So let's go with Ghost. So I'll click on that, click play. And what I also like to do is apply some overall sharpening to my result. So I'll select the top layer here, overall brightness and contrast, and I'll merge everything that I see onto one layer. So I'll hold down Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E. So that has merged everything onto one layer here. Next, I can go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and I typically like to leave the amount at around 100, and the radius pretty low, anywhere from 0.3 to 1 basically. But let's go somewhere around here. Okay, and if you wanted to, you could go a step further by going into Filter, Camera Raw Filter here, and down the bottom here under Effects, you can apply vignetting. So I can drag this to the left, and that will, a bit hard to see, but you see if I drag to the right, that'll add white vignetting, but to the left blacks. So that will help sort of narrow your focus around your graphic here. So I'll click OK to that. So let's take a look at the before and after. So with the top layer selected, I'll shift select all the way down to the background color, Control or Command G to group, and I'll just turn on our original graphic here. So if I turn off group 1, so there was our original text, and this is what the action created for me. All right, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy using the effect.